mics are on, and then all you gotta do is press main cam one. I'll tell you guys.
Yep.
You're good.
Why are you so high?
He has two phones.
Oh, well, you don't need them. Move move one of them. You're too high. It's like a dang giraffe.
You got it, definitely. It says main cam one. Yeah. Okay. There you go. All right, you grab your microphone.
Testing.
You're good.
Good afternoon, world. It is moments past noon here in Waxahachie, Texas, on the 11th of September, 9/11 September 2025. And this is the Grit and Good News Show, and it doesn't look like our normal set. Normally, a guy that looks like Sammy would be me sitting over there. Scott's still in his normal spot. I get to put the hand out like Sam. Um, Sam's taking my spot today. Nobody knows more about Charlie Kirk than Sam, and that's why he's sitting over there today. We're in our palatial downtown studio in the shadows of the Ellis County Courthouse, and I'm Jeff Lynch, Sam Brooks, Scott Brooks. Scott,
Thank you, bud.
lead us through this
Thank you,
tough
bud.
day.
Yeah, we're a little set up a little different today. Jeff may get back on camera, but Jeff's a part of the conversation as usual, big part of the conversation. Thank you for being here. We do Great and Good News every Tuesday and Thursday live from noon to 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. We have folks that watch us live, but we have by and large most of the people that watch us watch later in the day or night, and we appreciate that. Our numbers are increasing, which we're grateful for sure. But um, we're always live should you ever want to spend your lunch hour with us, but we appreciate you being here today. Normally we have an agenda, what we call a set list, and we go through our topics and our discussions, and they cover the gamut in many respects, from sports to politics to current events, cultural things. But today we're just going to talk about uh, two things. One, very briefly, not that that would indicate that we find it to be flippant or unimportant, that being 9/11. But we're going to talk mostly today about Charlie Kirk and about what happened yesterday in Orem, Utah, and events that, as Jeff and I were talking about a little while ago, are at my age and at Jeff's age. And of course, Sammy's much younger, but none of us have ever experienced that I can recall. I mean, I grew up and remember well Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy. I was about 8 at that time, too young to remember at the moment or in real time John F. Kennedy. But what happened yesterday was something that's not happened in my adult lifetime that I can recall. And we're going to talk. So we're going to talk about Charlie. I want to say Charlie Hurt because there's a Charlie Hurt who's also very good and also a public name on Fox. He's got the big hair, big head, and very smart guy. And then there's Charlie Kirk. We're going to talk about what happened with Charlie Kirk. So let's start with before we get into the meat of this. And by the way, Sammy's here one because we're going to start integrating Sammy into our show more. We want to reach a younger audience or a young audience. We know we have some of the following with Jeff and I, but we're of a different generation. So we want to bring Sammy into the show more and integrate him. So there'll be times when it's Jeff and Sammy, me and Jeff. Uh, but you'll see Sammy more often. In this case, Sammy for quite some time. I mean, years. If I said 3 years, that's over 10% of Sammy's life. Uh, but for a number of years, Sammy has been a big fan of Charlie Kirk, like a lot of young people, and much like I loved and love Rush Limbaugh, Sammy loved and loves Charlie Kirk. So that's why Sammy's on today. He has some things he wants to share with you guys. But before we get to that, Jeff, thoughts on 9/11? I mean, it's 24 years ago today. Uh, right now, 24 years ago at this time of the day, at noon, wherever we were starting to get the fully aware of all three planes that had crashed.
It's like if you're old enough to have remember when JFK was shot, and,
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
Uh, this has that same impact in terms of memory. I knew exactly where I was when it happened,
Mm-hmm.
and I made a phone call to a dear customer friend and said, Ken, are you watching what's on TV? He said,
Yeah.
yeah. And we're talking, and then the
Watching
plane
it.
goes through the second tower.
Yeah.
So it's kind of odd. And sadly, the newspaper didn't come today, which is rough on me. But
Not our newspaper, the Dallas Morning
no, the
News you're
Dallas Morning
referring to.
News.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how much first page news that was when I finally see the paper. I know over the years it dwindles and dwindles and dwindles into the past.
You talking about the
The
9/11?
9/11.
Yeah, I mean, we don't on November the 22nd every I think it's 22nd every year. We talk not we, but the world talks about John F. Kennedy, but there's nothing to any significant degree anymore of coverage. I mean, what more is there to say?
Yeah,
The
like
same thing is
on the
happening.
10-year anniversaries,
Yeah,
we had it here in 2023.
right.
It was pretty big, but
Yeah,
this November,
yeah,
it
it's
won't be front page news.
right. I totally agree with that. And Sammy wasn't born yet, but Sammy, what do you know or remember? Just whatever how you describe it, 9/11.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Chuck for being here and that message.
Yes.
Second of all, I just want to send out my thoughts and prayers to anybody that was involved or impacted by 9/11. Give my thanks to the first responders and of course the dogs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been in New York and I've been to the memorial. It was a very nice memorial. But I don't really have any.
Yeah.
I wasn't born yet, so but my thoughts and prayers are out to everybody that was
Yeah.
involved or impacted.
Sammy was born in 2004, in July of 2004. So all of what Sammy knows is what he has learned from family, from friends, from the news, from memorials, from going to that. Uh, I at the time it happened, I was in Pittsburgh working for the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, which, as most of you know, one of the planes crashed right outside of Pittsburgh. And it's amazing what newspapers back in the day when we were hitting our stride could do. And in that case, again, this was in 2001. We found out about, I was in a meeting, found out about it. Uh, I was in the executive committee. The executives, we all got together and said, how do we want to deal with this? We decided that we would put together that morning what we called a special section, like a tabloid, and it was in dedication to the people who were on the plane that crashed in outside of Pittsburgh. And so by 1 o'clock that afternoon, we had a fully put together, published and delivered tab with pictures of every person on that airplane and their names and a little bit about them. So it was a lot of work in a short period of time. What stands out to me beyond all the other obvious things is that that afternoon I had a conference call scheduled with a guy named forget his first name, but his last name was Grancolis, and it was because he worked for an advertising agency that we used on the West Coast in Los Angeles. And so I was making a trip to Los Angeles, and he was going to be my tour guide, so to speak. And so we had that call scheduled at 2 o'clock Pittsburgh time, and which would have been 11 o'clock his time. No, noon his time. His wife was on the flight that crashed, Lauren Grancolis. Uh, and so obviously we didn't have that call. We didn't have any calls that afternoon, but I remember that distinctly. But working for a newspaper at that time and having one of the planes crash so close to Pittsburgh was quite the experience. And we don't, I mean, the memorial, Sammy's seen it since it's been completed. I did go over to the memorial. It wasn't a memorial by then. They were still uh, dealing with the aftermath and all of the structural damage in February of 2002. I went over to New York City and walked. They had where you didn't have to pay to do it, but you had to get a ticket at Pier 17 on the Hudson River. So we got several of us got a ticket, and we walked at this wooden ramp path stage that they had created right in front of a church, right next to the site. And I mean, the memorials everywhere. We walked up, and you could look down maybe 100 yards, if that. You could look down and see all the trucks that were in there. It was quite awesome in that sense. It was all just all like, holy cow. And I'd been to the World Trade Centers and towers, and like, how could this happen? When you see it.
Yeah, when I went, it was very nicely built, but it had, pieces of shrapnel, buildings, the fire trucks. It was
Yeah,
very, very interesting. Very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So anyway, anything else on the 9/11?
One of my most cherished items in my collection of all old ticket stubs is a tiny little ticket stub from going to the top of the
Oh
World
yeah,
Trade Center in 1990 when I was there on a business trip.
yeah.
Cherish it.
Interesting. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about what happened yesterday. I don't want to rehash all of what you guys already know, but we know that at 1:20 our time here in Texas, uh, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I mean, murdered, whatever you want to call it, in the most chilling of ways. And if you haven't seen the video of what happened, I would encourage you not to have that imprint on your brain. It's we've seen. I don't know if you've seen it, Jeff, but yeah. So we've all three seen what happened in the goriest sense. And it's not something I would, had I known that's what I was going to be seeing, I probably would have not looked at it. But we're in the media and we need to know. So it's awful what we saw yesterday. What are we going to say, Jeff?
One thing that I have found interesting in the news coverage is obviously it did not happen on 9/11. It happened the day before. But I can't help but think somehow, some way, this
Connected.
person who did this had that in the back of his head.
Well, that's an important point. I
Have
would
you heard anything about that?
No, but I would
Mm-mm.
argue here are the pictures. Sammy runs our board usually, but he's not, so we're just going to show you pictures. But if you haven't seen, there have now been pictures posted of the person. I'm sure they know this is the person that did it. If you look at this person, just based on what you see here, uh, you it's fair to make the assumption that this guy, this punk, I'm trying to be nice, was probably not alive on 9/11, much like what we just heard from Sammy. So the question then would be, in terms of the connection, we deal with in our daily lives, we deal with people on a younger generation that really doesn't have the connection to 9/11 that say we would. And so on one hand, you would say, well, it was on the 10th before the 9/11, but it was at an event that was booked by the school and Charlie, that I'm assuming didn't have anything to do with 9/11. Uh, and this kid likely wasn't born in 9/11, which means he was likely detached from it or disconnected from it. So I could see where it would give reason to think, well, maybe there's a connection, with 9/11. But on the other hand, I could say where they don't think like we do. So it probably wasn't. It was because Charlie Kirk was there on 9/10, that it happened. You know,
Doesn't that picture just look like he could just be any kid
it does. It
on
looks like it
campus?
could be
And and
Sammy.
and I'm
Yeah.
sure
Yeah,
that made it easy for him to not draw any
Oh,
attention.
for
sure.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he was on a college campus with 2 or 3 thousand people. He was just and he looked like he could be
It
Sammy's
looks
buddy.
like me. Yeah.
He doesn't look like a punk. He
He
doesn't look
doesn't
like a
look like
dirt ball.
No, he doesn't. And
He
yet,
doesn't look like a radical.
and what's interesting is that this kid never stopped to think about. Well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't care, but I mean, Charlie Kirk did what Charlie Kirk did for people like this kid. I mean, he wanted to say, let's educate ourselves. Let's talk about our views. I mean, Charlie Kirk was sharp. He didn't mind telling you straight up what he thought. He was smart. He had all of it. And so I if you were weak or ultra sensitive person and you had a conversation with Charlie, although I think Charlie was indicated or showed how sensitive and compassionate he could be. But a guy like Charlie Kirk, who's going to speak the truth, which is the way we all should be, at some point is going to be perceived to be harsh, although he's not, by ultra sensitive people, and or snowflakes as we call them, or woke people. And that's unfortunate when you listen to these, Sammy, I'll ask you, when you see these questions and answers, what what if you had to describe, if I came up to you and said, describe for me a Charlie Kirk event, how would you describe it?
I would describe it as it's all free mic or open mic. So it's a big crowd. And what I notice is whenever a leftist goes up there and says, something crazy or just something that's just crazy, the whole crowd will boo.
Yeah.
The whole crowd will boo that person. And what Charlie does is tells them to stop so that so that he can hear the question, hears what he needs to say. And that's how I would describe it,
Yeah.
as Charlie just wanting to have discussion, and wants to hear what these kids have to say and see what's going on inside their mind.
So as we think about a motive, I mean, to kill somebody, I'm going to be transparent as always. The only way I could ever imagine me being so angry as to not care if what I did resulted in the loss of life would be if somebody took the life of somebody that I loved, like my children, my wife, any family member. Uh, many of you will relate to this, but my pets. You see somebody take the life or hurt an innocent dog or pet, that brings out those emotions.
So you coming on an angle here that says possibly that this person knew somebody who had uh, in some way been greatly hurt by something Charlie said, and it affected them, and it ended up costing them life. Or is
Well,
that where you're
maybe,
going there?
yeah. No, I asked you. I appreciate you asking me for that clarification. I don't. I describe what would have to feel to be willing to take the life of somebody else. My point there is that we have people in society today that have a much uh, quicker threshold to be able to be to be in the same position of being willing to take somebody's life. In this case, we don't know the facts obviously yet, but something triggered this guy, and it could be that he was the one that in his mind suffers because of Charlie's position, which again was the truth. I don't know. I mean, Charlie was very smart, and I don't ever remember a time when I heard him say something, which is often, probably daily, that I didn't hear him say something, and there wasn't a time when I did hear him say something and say to myself, he's not telling the truth. I always believed what I was hearing to be the truth, either because I knew it or because I was willing to go look it up. Um, in this case, this is likely probably an not super intelligent person, more on feelings and emotions. And Charlie hit that threshold, which again came a lot quicker than it would be for any one of us to be triggered to hurt or kill another human being. That would take a lot, but it would take a lot. Killing a family member is a lot. But that trigger can be hit immediately in an act of killing somebody I love. So I'm going to act quickly, but that trigger is my threshold is deep.
I want to play off both of your time.
Okay.
I want to take your comment about Charlie telling people not to be. And I was watching a lot yesterday afternoon. And I saw what happened in the floor of the Congress.
Yeah.
And we asked for a moment of silence. The same people wouldn't stand up at the inauguration, talk about great dead heroes in our country. And they started
Booing.
and I could not believe.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
It's absolutely disgusting.
It's hard to fathom. It's reprehensible. It's reprehensible, which is, as we'll get to here in a little while, is what I think serves as the premise or the foundation of what we're seeing in America. Now, a couple of things I want to get to so that we can discuss these things. We know that they now have what I suspect is the killer. The Kash Patel, as he communicated to someone late last night that I saw interviewed this morning, said that we have a lot more information about this than what we can release. So I'm sure that it will only be a matter of hours, probably before they release the name of this person, they catch him and all that. But Charlie was really a once in a lifetime kind of guy.
He was my Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, he was your Rush Limbaugh. And for me, Rush Limbaugh was not college educated. He was he was a self-made man, didn't come from wealth. He made his wealth. He didn't change over the years. He was different than Charlie Kirk because Rush was willing to be provocative in ways that a lot of my friends, even on the right, which are most of my friends, don't like, didn't like Rush because they perceived him to be arrogant. Well, what they missed about Rush was that he played on that. It was part of his shtick, was to say. Matter of fact, if you last night they had an interview with Rush back when in 2018 talking about Charlie Kirk,
Yeah.
and Charlie Kirk said to Rush, as Rush was telling it, that my parents watch your show, my friends love you, my mom loves you, and Rush kicks into that. Well, I don't blame him. I mean, I can do things with half my brain, as he used to say, half my brain tied behind my back. But that was part of his, excuse me, part of his shtick. I don't think he was an arrogant guy. I think he played one so as to keep the absurdity going. Charlie didn't really have that. Matter of fact, when you think about the booing, it wasn't always the case when Charlie would go to these campuses that somebody would get up to speak from the left and be harsh. There wasn't booing because those campuses, uh, those students, before Charlie started converting them, they're part of the academia left, which
Mhm.
was like the ones that are being booed now. Most of them were that way, so you didn't hear the booing.
True.
But now, if you needed to have a visual or an audio of how effective Charlie was, is that go back to when he did one of his first. If they have it on YouTube, go back to one of his firsts,
Mhm.
and then compare it to the way that it is now in terms of crowd size, in terms of the questions, in terms of how the people around responded to the questioner. uh, you could see the evolution of the transformation of these students. It's really fascinating because there was no booing in the beginning. There was more clapping. Yeah, you
Yeah.
tell Charlie. Now they go after Charlie or ask him some dopey question.
And they boo.
They were booing and saying and wearing their MAGA hats. Charlie before the show, yeah, before this thing yesterday was throwing his 47 hats out. You saw that. Those kids were eating that stuff up. So
Until yesterday, in the last 24 hours, I've learned more about Charlie than I knew ever.
Gotcha.
Everything I ever knew was, I'd say 15 times when I was sitting in that chair and Sam was sitting in this chair,
Yeah.
he'd make a reference to Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
And you know what I did? I never went and researched him.
Yeah.
I didn't. Okay, so you got this guy you like, Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good. I'm glad you like him. Okay, I kind of feel
Bad.
bad.
Yeah, I mean I think those of us in an older generation aren't necessarily compelled. If I mean, I know Sammy obviously is my son, but if some other young person that I know, kind of shallow or peripheral, said, I love the Beast, which is some popular dude on. I've never seen anything about the Beast. I don't really care to. So it's easy for us to slough off. Just the opposite happens. So if I go up to one of Sammy's friends, Sammy knows who Rush is because Sammy used to every single day from 11 to 2 o'clock when I was a single dad and had Sammy. He was exposed to it, and I mean on the radio loud, so he could hear it. But if I went and said, "Who's Rush Limbaugh?" to today's generation of young people, they'd say, "I wasn't he some guy, fat guy that was addicted to hydrocodone or OxyContin, which he was, and all that." Um, but in this case, Charlie Kirk transcended that, and for Sammy, I mean, I have Rush Limbaugh. And I have the mementos that I have of Rush Limbaugh that are dear to me. Uh, but I get it. I get the relationship. I get why yesterday Sammy broke down upon hearing the news of Charlie Kirk dying. I get it, And so, but Charlie Kirk was married. since 2001.
2021.
2021. That's what I meant. He had 2 kids, both under the age of 4 to be safe. His wife's named Erica. He was the CEO and founder of Turning Point USA, which, as I mentioned to my wife last night, is an 81 million dollar company. Uh, has 300 employees. Has what? How many? 3,500 chapters across America on college campuses and other places. I believe there ought to be a chapter here.
Hmm.
Something maybe you ought to look into because um, somebody's got to pick up where Charlie left off. And Charlie, uh, 31 years old, soon to be 32, I believe in October. Um, and this morning in an interview with Bibi Netanyahu, who was talking, it was about Charlie Kirk. Said, I love this man, and that I invited him to come to Israel to speak and uh, about how much he loves the Israeli people. And this is he's he's almost the age difference between Netanyahu and Charlie Kirk is almost grandson,
Hmm.
not father son. Sammy's my son, but he's 43 years younger than I am, and uh, we skipped a generation. So my oldest son is 40. So there you have it. So we're talking about Netanyahu, a world leader, talking about Charlie Kirk, somebody young enough to be his grandson, as though he was just one of Netanyahu's peers. Uh, and so Charlie Kirk went to all these schools, and
This was the first event of his America Comeback tour that he
yeah,
was starting. He was
yeah,
at Utah Valley
University
University.
in Orem, Utah, which is Orem is about 30 minutes south of Salt Lake City, and it only just begun in that yesterday.
20 minutes, Dad.
Yeah, 20 minutes. So it was, and again, it happened at 1:20 our time.
So
And
12:20 their time,
yeah,
right?
12:20 their time. It came, right before I came over, I saw the last text Charlie sent was he to Senator from Mike Lee from Utah said, just landed. I think today's going to be a win. And it was 11:20. And so it was 1 hour later that Charlie would be killed. Chuck, thanks for your comments. Social media, even media, could push someone over the edge. No doubt. It's a different time now, and so these triggers, these thresholds, are so much. The triggers are so much quicker today. Uh, for things like this to happen. I mean, you got almost this time last year, talking about December of 2024, early part of December, a young man, probably similar to age as this kid, uh, walked up in New York City, the streets of New York City, behind a CEO of United Healthcare and shot him in the back and killed him. Not because that guy ever did anything wrong to the Mangione, but because Mangione was triggered. This guy, there were scrawlings. They found the weapon. So another further updates. They found the weapon in woods. So what's happened here is that this kid at 11:52 local time, which would have been about 30 minutes before he shot Charlie Kirk, uh, went into the building, up on the roof, got prepared to shoot Charlie, and then shot him, then came down. It all started at 11:52. These videos, these pictures, um, they know that he left through a neighborhood adjacent to the campus, that he went through woods to get to wherever he was going. In those woods, the FBI has now reported they found the gun, which was a uh, high-powered rifle, bolt action, and one bullet was found, and they found shoe imprints. They found palm imprints on the gun. I assume is the stock or what do we call
I
that?
think forearm imprints too.
Forearm and palm prints. Uh, so they know a lot.
They do. They
Well,
know. They
when
know a
when
lot.
they find him, I guarantee you one thing they're going to find out is somewhere he was a trained marksman.
Yeah, I
You
mean he
take
had
you
to
take a
be
shot from 200 feet,
200 yards.
200 yards. You know what it's like? 2 football fields at AT&T Stadium or Lumpkins Field here.
Yeah, 200 yards is 600 feet. 600 feet is 6 stories. of a building. So if you look up 6 stories, that's how far he was away.
Not only did he hit the man, he hit the spot he was looking for,
Yeah, I mean, it was
Yeah,
and
as
and
a
from closer range, Trump was hit in the ear.
yeah,
But by the grace of God, Trump
yeah.
would have been killed
Yeah,
also.
we many, a bunch of people in the world said, "Gosh, what we would have had to experience with Trump, seeing a presidential candidate be shot. Essentially, if you take the ear and just move it over, shot right, right in the face,
hmm
we would have had to have seen that. Yeah, we would have had to watch that, and thankfully we didn't. Well, we did yesterday, and so last night the crime dudes that were being interviewed said it was a kill shot. But yeah, they're going to find out something that he did to make him a marksman enough to be able to do what he did. But the FBI knows so much more than what they're able to say, and so we just need to let that play out. But Sammy, um, where were you when you found out the news? Y'all were
I
at
was
lunch?
I was on my lunch break. We had just left Kennedy's house to check on my two sweet cats, and um, we pulled into Sonic, and she had it ordered on her phone. So what we usually do is we just get on our phones and talk. And the first post I see is from afar, very far, but I could see the video, and I just started freaking out,
Yeah,
saying I need to call my dad and let him know.
yeah,
And I called you, and I told you, and you said, I know it's on.
yeah,
At that point, I mean, I've never freaked out like that before. It was a complete shock. So I get off the phone with you, and Kennedy asked me if I want to see what happened, and she showed me, and at that point, I knew that he was probably not gonna
gonna
make it.
die. Yeah.
Um, and so that
I
was
didn't know they were showing that shot that soon.
Oh, yeah, it was
it was
almost
on
real
Twitter.
time.
It was on
There
Twitter.
were people that had kids in the crowd, as you've
I
seen.
saw it later on.
They
Okay.
post that stuff immediately.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so we just drove back and just waited for the news. About probably 40 minutes later, he was pronounced
passed
dead.
away. Yeah, it's so surreal. It will remain surreal. Sammy, like a lot of young people, really hasn't experienced death up close and personal. I mean,
I've never experienced a death, even a
yeah,
family member death. I've never
yeah.
experienced that.
I remember at 15 experiencing my first, and that was my grandfather. And the images of him in a casket and that sort of thing will never, ever leave my mind. Never. Uh, but there are people, even older people, who never experience death. And Rush died in 2021 of lung cancer, and so he knew he was dying. He told the viewers, his followers, rabid, like Charlie's, just rabid, dedicated, ditto heads is what they were called, because Rush would often say ditto or something on the radio. And so he got, over the years, that we became ditto heads. And, and for some of these kids, people, uh, Charlie, Charlie Kirk being killed on national TV is their not only their first experience with death, but it had to be in such a horrific way.
Horrific. One
Yeah,
thing one thing I want to say about Charlie is that Charlie never hurt anybody. Never, ever, would never hurt anybody. He never, passed a policy. He never, enforced anything, got something passed, did anything like that. So this is purely just off not liking what he believes, and that's why this is so heartbreaking. Is because that's just the most silliest thing I've heard.
yeah.
A reason to kill somebody. I mean, Charlie's never done anything. He's a family man. He loves, and it's just purely just because he doesn't like what he believes.
I think so. Charlie, as Beverly says, Charlie was amazing, and no, there's only one Jesus, uh, God man that was perfect. Jesus was 33 when he was crucified. I do, however, liken a guy like Charlie Kirk to Jesus in this sense, is that Jesus never set out to hurt anybody. He gave his life uh, committed his life to helping people. And I think Charlie, at the end of the day, that's why I said earlier, I believe this young man that did this, if he would have just stopped and realized if there was a way for him to connect with Charlie, that he would have loved Charlie.
If he would have went up to that mic,
Yeah.
he would have known that yes, Charlie will tell you the truth, but he would have known that it's Charlie's a great guy.
Yeah. Charlie wasn't here to say, he wasn't casting dispersions on people or convicting them of anything. He was just saying, here's the truth and why you ought to know about the truth. Um, he wanted to be remembered for his faith, and he is going to be remembered for his faith. He will forever be remembered for his faith. He was, as many people have said, a martyr, a Christian martyr, modern day martyr. He died because of what he believed and what he spoke. And so when I think about Jesus, when Jesus was confronted by uh, the Romans, uh, and they were in his face, calling him every name in the book. They were spitting in his face. They were pulling the hair out of his beard, and that sounds so trivial. But let somebody pull the hair out of your beard, or that hurts, and you want to just say hit somebody or whatever. Jesus stood there and took it. Charlie, even the first question yesterday had to do with gun violence.
His last words was gang violence,
Yeah.
but talking about guns.
Yeah, so he was trying to get clarification from the questioner about something about gang violence, and then
Yeah.
the bullet hit him. But he would ask the people around, the other students who were booing, because they didn't like the question. He would say, let him finish, let her finish, and let me answer the question. Let's be respectful. And so I agree with you, Sammy. He didn't do anything other than want to help people, and that makes it so tragic, so infuriating.
And enlighten the youth of America.
Yeah. I mean, who else is doing it? Nobody, really. I mean, the youth of America is impacted by academia so much. And I've often said that academia is not about education. This is a broad statement, but it's about indoctrination. And so academia is being, used to promote transgender stuff. It's being used to promote DEI and all this other stuff. Uh, and Charlie was the antithesis of that. And that's one reason why he didn't want kids going to college, because they would be indoctrinated. That's the reason he was on college campuses.
Yeah, that's why he went to college.
And he was booed off of them. He was prevented. I saw an interview with him. I don't know when he made it, but it was telling the interviewer, I've been run out of restaurants. I've been run off of college campuses. I've been threatened. I've been physically attacked before. And so he knew all the risks and still did it.
I might be coming way out of left field here, which is okay, I guess. But every month when I change that calendar, make a big thing out of it and talk about the parallel months within a year and then the parallels of years.
Yeah.
And the years that are parallel to us right now, we have parallel years between 1947, the tumult of coming out of World War II, 2003, the tumult of coming out of 9/11, 1969, with our country ravaged with dissent, and now 2025. And what's the parallel between 1969 and 2025? In 56 years, it's the youth.
Yeah.
The tumult of the 60s was the youth.
Yeah.
And they cared about peace. Hello.
Yeah.
They didn't want the Vietnam War.
Right.
And guess what? It did end up that war went away.
Yeah.
And it was all for nothing. And guess what else? As far as I'm concerned, in my life, okay, in 1964, I was a 14-year-old boy. And I think about everything that's happened between then and now. And I don't remember involvement by our youth in those 56 years.
Yeah, I do.
And so now here we have it. Now,
Yeah.
how weird is all that?
I mean,
Yeah,
until I started watching Charlie Kirk, I wasn't in the loop at all. I didn't care about politics. I mean, I was a Christian, obviously, but and he strengthened my faith. But I wasn't into politics, anything like that. And I watched one of his videos, and I was completely and hooked at that moment. And from that moment on, I watched him daily,
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah, Chuck says Texas A&M just replaced a dean due to issues recently. Yes, they did. And Beverly says my granddaughter at Texas A&M called me to tell me they're having a prayer meeting tonight. Good. Charlie was there a few months ago. I, um, I don't. uh, There will not be another person to really. I mean, to replace somebody like Rush or like Charlie Kirk. It's almost like they're irreplaceable. I mean, we think of ourselves. I certainly look at myself and say I'm replaceable. I mean, obviously, um, there are some people in life, though, they're so unique, so talented, so extraordinary that it's hard to. There's only one Archie Manning, by example. They can talk about Peyton and Eli and Arch, but there will always only be one Archie Manning. There will only always be one Charlie Kirk. And yet, it's why I've challenged Sammy. For those of you watching, I want you to know I've challenged Sammy to pick up where Charlie left off in his own local community. We have two schools here. One is Nelson University, formerly SAGU, so Assemblies of God. I went to two Christian universities, so I know on Christian college campuses that it's not perfect. Believe me, it's not prude and it's not uh, white as snow. There are things that happen there. So, and then we have Navarro, but we're right adjacent to a lot of big time institutions, and these kids need somebody like Charlie Kirk because, by and large, professors. Uh, I'm certain if you had a poll, it would find the vast majority of professors are on the left, administrations are on the left. I happen to believe, despite folks on the left getting mad at me, that, again, it's generally speaking, I'm not saying every Democrat in the world or in the country or in our own community is bad, but I am saying by and large that this stuff, this premise, this foundation that leads to horrific events comes from the left. We just heard Jeff say a minute ago that in response to the Charlie Kirk murder yesterday in on Capitol Hill in Chambers, Lauren Boebert of Colorado said, let's have a prayer for, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, Charlie Kirk. And those on the left booed and said, no, no, no. And I'm thinking, why? Where do you have to, where does your heart have to reside to be able to say no to that? Uh, is your heart, if your heart is willing to say no to that, if your heart is willing to say, as we heard the mayor of Minneapolis say last week, and others will say, if your heart is in a place that says, don't, I don't want to hear about prayers and thoughts. Don't give that crap to me anymore. Is your heart, if it's there, is it much further from a place of this guy's heart, of this killer's heart? I argue no. And and so I look at the left and say, enough already. I'm saying to the Ellis County uh, Democrat Party, Kelly Blackburn and her party, uh, stand up, say something about this, say that it's wrong, talk about that you all have boundaries, and that while we can disagree, and we do all the time, and I'm talking, when I say we, I'm talking about me and the positions I have. Uh, Stand up and say what happened with Charlie Kirk can never, ever, ever happen again. And if Charlie Kirk has the proof to show you that transgenderism for children is awful, and I mean that's a, you know, a word, an adjective, uh, describing what the facts show, and you disagree with that, then okay, but stand up and say that's where it ends. The disagreement can be the disagreement. If there are people, I'll never forget one time when I was at the Daily Light, I wrote a column about Hillary Clinton, and much like Jeff Foxworthy says, you know, you're a redneck if you know you do this. Why? I wrote a column that said, you know, you're a liberal if, and I listed all these various points, and one of them was if you espouse or believe that abortion is okay. And I'll never forget a lady who still lives here, uh, on the left, came into my office and said, how dare you say that in your column about Hillary Clinton? And I said, well, let me ask you, is it okay to abort a baby in the 8th month? And she stormed out of my office. And so my point of sharing that with you is that I'm never going to convince her that abortion is murder, and she's never going to convince me that it isn't. But I didn't want to go out and shoot her, and she didn't want to shoot me, I don't think. So who's now dealing with a much quick triggered young generation? Uh, who's going to fill or do or take up where Charlie left off?
Sam, let me ask you, would you say that the number one thing that Charlie did for you and for everybody that was a follower of him was to make them think?
Yes.
Yes. And I know you've written a very nice piece, and I want to lead you into that piece.
Yeah, I want to
And
do it at the end.
yeah, and
So we got a few minutes,
Yeah,
but
and so I want to tell you about an experience I had this morning. I mean, this affected me. It caught me off guard. Okay, and then I went to bed fairly early, and I woke up at 2:30, and I could not sleep, and I couldn't get back to sleep. And a verse to a song kept coming back into my head, and the verse was, "So his seeds of thought can spread and infect the little children." And I got up and I researched and I go, oh, that's one of my favorite old songs by Mason Prophet. It's called Two Hangmen. And I want to take the parallel to say that this poem was written in 1916. It was a song in 1969, and it was all about an allegory for what was happening in the country with young people starting to think and having their say about things. And it goes something like this: Two hangmen. As I rode into Tombstone on my horse, his name was Mac, I saw what I'll relate to you going on behind my back. It seems the folks were up in arms. A man now had to die for believing things that didn't fit the laws they'd set aside. The man's name was I'm a Freak, the best that I could see. He was an executioner, a hangman just like me. I guess he'd seen loopholes from working with his rope. He'd hung the wrong man many times, so now he turned to hope. He talked to all the people from the scaffold in the square. He told them of the things he found, but they didn't seem to care. He said the laws were obsolete, a change they should demand, but the people only walked away. He couldn't understand. The marshal's name was Uncle Sam. He said he'd right the wrong. He'd make the hangman shut his mouth if it took him all day long. He finally arrested Freak, and then he sent for me to hang a fellow hangman from a fellow hangman's tree. It didn't take them long to try him in their court of law. He was guilty then of thinking, a crime much worse than all. They sentenced him to die, so his seed of thought can spread and infect the little children. That's what the law had said. So the hanging day came round, and he walked up through the noose. I pulled the lever, but before he fell, I cut him loose. They called it all conspiracy, and that I had to die. So to close our mouths and kill our minds, they hung us side by side. And now there's two hangmen hanging from a tree, and that don't bother me at all. And then they repeat that about 7 times, and they just start jamming and jamming and jamming, and then all of a sudden there's violins playing, and it's a powerful song. But I'm telling you what, that's the parallel between 1969 and what we got going on in this world.
Yeah, there's a good parallel. I would agree with you. I don't I don't know, for me personally, and I'm only speaking for me, I don't know where necessarily I go from here. I mean, I am pushing retirement age. I certainly don't have any desire to stop. I don't have any fear about taking a position and talking about it. We've had death threats here. I've had death threats in other communities. I don't never once I've had people around me make me take steps to protect myself in Buffalo, particularly when one year with respect to an abortionist who had shot some people in Boston and said he was coming to Buffalo. And so, but never have I ever stopped to think I'm going to not do what I think my purpose is because of the risk. In that sense, I concur with Charlie Kirk. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I think Charlie Kirk was willing to do that. Obviously, he went to college campuses and outdoors. He didn't want to be inside. He could have had that 3,000 people. And I'm sure there was an auditorium on that campus where he could have had that in there.
He does that
Uh,
very rarely. The last time he did that was actually at Texas A&M. They filled a whole auditorium
Yeah,
for him.
so
But
maybe it was for crowd size purposes, but he wanted to be outside. And so, and he had his own security detail, but they didn't, you saw yesterday, there was nobody on the side of him, nobody in front of him, nobody, they were behind him. And when he got shot, they, carried him into their car and to their SUV and took him to the hospital uh, immediately. But uh, we must keep going. And, uh, Charlie Kirk is to be honored. President Trump announced this morning that he's going to give the Medal of Freedom.
can I ask you what that
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, it's to recognize somebody that, like a Charlie, although Biden, in my view, gave it to people that didn't deserve it. Clowns, really, in my opinion. But in this case, it's for people who have strengthened America by
Okay.
making sure that we remain free
Okay.
and that we remain the kind of the great country we are. And so
And
I don't,
he says he's gonna give it to Charlie,
well,
but
it's called posthumously, which means after death. So he will award it to Charlie. My guess is give it to his wife,
okay.
and then but it's to recognize Charlie.
Okay.
And that happens in a lot of cases where somebody's passed away. They'll do it posthumously.
That word always sounds creepy, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does. So where do we go from here? Sammy, where do you go from here?
I really don't know. I have this piece I'm about to, read for you guys, but this whole thing is just very heartbreaking to me. I've never grieved like this, especially to a death that somebody that I hadn't even met.
Yeah.
And I really don't know where to go. I looked at him as a mentor, a visionary. I truly listened to what he said and I took it into account. And yeah, this is a big moment for me in America. And like a lot of people are saying, he didn't, that killer didn't shoot the light out, he lit a fire.
Yeah.
So,
Well, to that end, again, I believe Sammy does a live whenever he wants to over here in the studio, and he usually gets lots of people. I mean, it'll grow if he did it regularly and when people expected it. But that's about sports.
yeah,
I would say that not maybe, that definitely Charlie, one way to honor Charlie is to take up his mantle and do the same here with your lives and at some
for sure.
point have an event or whatever. But Charlie's message will not die out. And if the fire has been lit, that means it's you need to let it burn your butt and you take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, definitely gonna need to do a lot, and I mean a lot of research because Charlie's the smartest dude I've ever
Yeah.
heard. I mean, any question you asked him, whether religion, any religion, he would know. Off the top of his head, he would know.
I think one of the ways to do that research is to watch as many YouTubes of Charlie as you can.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a professor in that sense, and
Mhm.
so just listen to him, and you'll learn that way. And if you need to dig deeper, he'll cite for you. Chances are he'll cite for you sources you can go to. But if he doesn't, but he's talking about, something about the church because he knew scripture really well. He knows politics and cultures and all that. You watch a video and he's talking about a topic, you can just Google it or AI it and learn on your own. But in a lot of ways, he is that source.
Yeah.
So I believe it's time for our young people, including my own son and for my stepchildren, for my sons-in-law. I sent them all a text last night saying, pick up from here and do something in your own sphere of influence that magnifies Charlie Kirk, because America lost a young icon, yesterday, and we can't let that go, let him go. There's a movement now. I saw it this morning. Somebody sent it to me. Jonna sent it to me that says, "I am Charlie." I think she sent it to you and Kennedy as well, but it's a movement that says, "I am Charlie," and what that means is I'm now going to take it from here. And I think you would feel really good about yourself. I know Charlie would feel good and be honored if you said, "Charlie, I got it from here, bud," in Ellis County, Texas. So with that, Jeff, do you have anything else?
I just want to thank Sam for being so respectful of those two old guys that even though he's sitting in the big chair, he he had about 10% of the talk. He's a good listener and a good thinker, and your dad loves you. I love you too,
Yeah.
and I can't wait for people to hear what you wrote
Yeah.
because
So
it moved me.
we have a sponsor. We're just going to skip all of that today. Any formalities? We'll be back next Tuesday at noon. We'll have a lot more to say then, I'm sure, as things develop. I'm deeply proud, profoundly proud of Sammy. He knows that. Anybody that knows me knows that. And he works with us, and I get to see him every day and watch him grow. Um, So with that, Sammy has written what is essentially, I don't know how many words it is, but it's a brief column. He's going to read it to you, and then we will post it both on the Waxahachie Sun Facebook page, on our Grit and Good News Facebook page. I may post it on my own personal page, and Sammy, you can post it wherever else you want to. But I will say goodbye, Jeff. I don't know if there's anything you want to say to anybody right now before Sammy reads that. I'd like for this to be the last thing that the folks hear. Um,
Well, as always, make it a great day and put a smile on somebody's face.
all right, so these are Sammy's thoughts about Charlie Kirk.
I've been reflecting a lot over the past day about someone who meant so much to me, someone who truly shaped the way I see the world. Charlie Kirk's words were there for me during some of the most formative moments of my life. His work challenged me to think deeper, to question the world around me, and to stand firm in my values. He strengthened my faith when I was struggling, guided my political views at a time when I felt lost, and reminded me of the importance of life, family, and purpose. Charlie had a way of taking complicated issues and breaking them down in a way that wasn't just understandable, it was convicting. He pushed me to be courageous, to stand for what I believe in, and to do it with conviction and grace. He wasn't just a voice on a podcast or a speaker at events. To me, he was a mentor from afar. Charlie meant so much to me personally, and I know I'm not alone. He shaped the lives of millions of young Americans, giving us a sense of direction in a world that often feels chaotic. He taught us that we are capable of so much more than we think, that we can live with integrity, defend what we know to be true, and lead with courage. I loved him for that. I respected him for that. His voice became a part of the soundtrack of my own growth, and I will always carry the lessons he taught me about freedom, responsibility, and faith into everything that I do. Today, I'm honoring Charlie by continuing to speak the truth, to ask hard questions, and to encourage others to never give up on building a better future. That's how we keep his legacy alive. Rest in peace, Charlie. Thank you for being here. It's going to be a weird of an end, but I got to go help Jeff. So.
Okay, all right. Thank you all.